Hello and welcome to Thy Kingdom Come podcast with Sarah and Daryl. And today we are blessed and excited to have a friend of mine and a friend of Sarah's, and also certainly a friend of God's and a wonderful man of God, Pastor Terry Severson from Saskatoon here, from Christ the Healer Gospel Church in Saskatoon. And also now, Terry, Life Outreach Campus.
Yes.
So two churches, two buildings, one church.
Yeah.
Would that be the best way to describe it?
Yeah. Same body, two buildings.
Yeah, that's to make sure so we're just going to start off by, I've known Terry for a while, and it's made a huge difference in my walk with the Lord so much. He's the most dedicated man and the most humble man that I've ever met. I don't know of another one, but through him, I've met other men that are very similar to him, and I just want to publicly say gratitude for you, sir, and what you do and what you do for people. It's I know that the Holy Spirit is with me when I choke up.
Yeah.
Because the first time we met, I didn't really have the Holy Spirit. I'll just tell this story. Can I tell that story?
Yeah.
I was reborn and water baptized at a Bible camp in the August of 2021. It was 2021.
Yeah.
So it's four years now, 3 years ago. And Pastor Terry was one of the guest pastors at the and that's where I got to meet him. And they were praying for me after, and I had not seen a Pentecostal or a charismatic or non-denominational. I didn't know what to call these guys. These pastors. There was four of them: Lonnie Sims, Pastor Perry Hubick, God rest his soul, and Pastor Paul Dubois. And there was the four of you, right? And they were just these powerful speakers and these powerful men of God, and the way they delivered the message was just so compelling. It was just like, and I just had never seen anything like that before. So then after they asked anybody that wanted to come up for prayer, so Terry came and prayed over him, and he couldn't really seem to get into the what would you call it? What was that? What would my
The
body
spirit.
be? The spirit. I wasn't accepting. I was still a man of the world.
Not receiving.
I can do everything by myself. God's really a cool friend to have, but I can pretty much do everything myself. And he was praying over me. He finally looked at Pastor Paul, because Pastor Paul is the one who baptized me. And he goes, "What's the matter with this guy?" And we've been good friends ever since then. I laughed at him that day. But I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is. He's just a good man. So
I think I was just being a little sarcastic.
Oh, I know you were. I know. But probably there was, back then there was a lot more wrong with me, and there's still stuff wrong with me, but I mean, there was a lot more wrong with me back then. But what an impact on his life. And I don't want to occupy much more time, but I just want to say thank you for coming, and maybe just share a little bit about your walk. I mean, or maybe even your, wherever you want to start, your upbringing, or what
Yeah, sure. I was born in Norquay, Saskatchewan.
Norquay, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, 60 miles northeast of Yorkton, so right by the Manitoba border, close to Swan River, Manitoba. Raised on a farm. My dad, he wasn't a Christian. He was a believer, but he wasn't a Christian, and he was a good man, hardworking man. And my mom actually married him because he didn't drink and he didn't smoke and he didn't swear when they met.
Oh,
yeah. So they were like, and he told me like a couple of years before he died, he felt like that when he was 18 years old that God was calling him into be a preacher, into the ministry. But he just chose to go into farming, and which was good and everything. But as soon as he said that, I said, I think I got you calling then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because where it just seemed to come out of nowhere. And so anyway, he didn't stay not drinking, not smoking, not swearing. He became a very successful farmer, but he was heavy alcoholic, and he changed a lot. And I remember when I was a little boy, he would come home, and I'm the youngest of five, and he'd come home and he would start arguing with my mom, and they'd start screaming at one another. And I was this little kid, maybe 6 years old, and I was sitting at the top of the stairs and thinking, I said, when I grow up, I'm not gonna drink, because I seen what, even as a little kid, I seen it changed him, because he was a completely different person when he drank. And so I had that conviction in my heart. And so all that kept going on for years and years. My dad, I just never could see him happy. He was never happy. He'd buy a quarter of land and started off with nothing. His dad wouldn't even co-sign for him to buy his first quarter of land, because he came out of the depression, and didn't want to take any chance to lose the land that he had.
Yeah.
And so um, a, an international harvester dealer co-signed for his first quarter of land.
Oh,
so he bought that, paid it off, and so then he just kept leveraging that, and it turned out really well for him. But I'd never seen him happy though. I remember he'd buy a big chunk of land or something. He'd be happy for a couple of days, and then be straight back to the way he was before. So he had the missing key element was the Lord, right? And we didn't know anything about that at that time. I never went to church, wasn't raised in church. So, but I always said, I'm not going to drink. I'm just not going to do that. But when I was 14 years old, I decided, I was playing fastball with a men's team, senior fastball, and as a catcher. And I had I was 14, so I had a little bit of talent. I guess I was on the team for a reason.
Kidding. Yeah, 14, right? Yeah.
So anyway, somebody offered me a beer, and I got they offered me to have a beer, and I said, okay, I'll try one. And I tried that one, and then that was it. I got hooked immediately.
Yeah.
I had to have it from there on in.
Yeah.
So really, I became consumed with it. So I'm consumed with drinking now, and my dreams of being I went to play professional hockey, or at least junior for sure. All that stuff kind of went down the tubes, because all I wanted to do was drink. So I had to get a job, and so that was part of my. I quit school when I was 16, and then when I was 16, the depression really hit me hard, because I gave up on everything that I wanted to do without even fighting for it, and so I got depressed. But nobody knew I was depressed. I didn't know why I was depressed. I didn't know, there was no talk in them days. Daryl, you probably could remember, nobody talked about depression or
No,
anything.
no.
They just,
No.
if you're feeling down, they just say, just smarten up. You'll get better.
Yeah.
And so nobody talked about it. So I would go to parties, and I would be a life of the party kind of thing, but then go home, and I'm thinking, I want to kill myself. As soon as I got by myself, I wanted to die. And still, till this day, I still get those moments where that comes into my head. This is so weird after all these years. What's the spirit of death? And so from the time I was 16 to the time I was 19, I tried committing suicide 5 times that I know of. So that I remember, like, loading a gun, those old 22s, you cock the trigger. I pull the pin back to cock it. And I would be sitting up in bed, and then in the morning I'd wake up and the gun would be laying on the floor, and I would be in bed, and I go, I don't even remember really what happened, but
Wow.
or how I transitioned from trying to kill myself to going to sleep. I don't know if the Lord just knocked me out or what, but I remember one time in particular, I was like in this room, and I was thinking about killing myself, but I was just laying in bed, and I seen right at the end of my bed, I looked, and there was this like tall, dark figure of a man standing, like a Darth Vader kind of figure, standing at the end of my bed. And I looked, I could like just see the silhouette, because it was dark. I could just see the silhouette of him. And all of a sudden I looked, and I seen a flash of light hit, and there was a sword in his hands. And I seen this bright sword lit up. And I didn't realize what it was till later, but then I covered my head up. I thought, this thing's going to kill me for sure. And then I waited for a while, and then it was gone. And I didn't realize till just a few years ago that light that came into the room was either an angel or the Lord himself drive that thing out.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's the way life was. I didn't want to live. I was, just a wreck, and nobody knew it because I wouldn't tell that in front of anybody. I was a different person.
No.
Wearing a mask, right? So I would have, if I would have been successful, nobody would have had any idea why I killed myself. There wouldn't have been a person in the world.
No.
They would have been shocked, and I've experienced that with people. You know, I've seen people like all of a sudden they commit suicide. Nobody has a clue what happened.
Right.
So they're probably struggling in silence for many years. So I met my wife when I was 19 years old, Shelley. We've been married for over 40 years now. Met her and we just fell in love right away at the age of 19.
Wow.
And I didn't want to die no more, but I still heavy drinker and stuff. So, but I enjoyed life with her. We had a lot of fun for the first couple of years, and we still do. It's different now. It's more different. We live a different role, different life now than we did when we were 19 years old. But we got along really well, and we dated for a couple of years. She got pregnant. We decided, well, I wanted to marry her. When she told me she was pregnant, I was excited because I love kids, and I wanted to marry her. So this is going to speed the process up, and we had no choice now. It's like let's do this. So she was terrified about how her mother was going to respond because she hated me. Mom hated me. She got to love me after a while, but I don't blame her for hating me. I was not a nice guy. And she always complained about my drinking, and when she did, I drank more.
Yeah.
You know, just the rebellion end of it. So we got married in February of 1984, and our baby was due in May 16th. The baby came, and the baby died at birth. And so, and that was like we were 21-year-old kids then, and we were just like really rattled. Shelley didn't understand because she believed in God. I didn't believe in God, but I couldn't blame God because I didn't believe in God. But really, what happened is like I think that the Lord, or that when that happened, I began to question my thinking. I used to think, well, there's no God. You die, it's over. When it's over, it's done. You're finished. Nothing happens after that.
Yeah.
So then this little guy, when my little baby died, and there was nothing wrong with him either. He wasn't deformed, or he was full term. They considered it like a crib death. And so I started thinking, well, what was that all about? Like he didn't get to see a moment of daylight or anything. Like he died in the womb before he was born. And so I just like, what was that all about? Maybe there's something in what I'm thinking is wrong. Like this is the way I started thinking. Maybe there is more, because it was the reverse of what the devil wanted to happen. Because, you know,
Yeah.
so the not believing in God really was an advantage for me, because if I would have believed in God, I would have blamed God, and I probably would have went worse. But anyway, so we lived through that, and we grew together through that. We got closer actually together after that, and then we started having children. We had 5 children in a row, and we had a miscarriage right after the stillborn, and then we had 5 children after that, and then we had a miscarriage at the end. So we have 8 children, 3 in heaven and 5 here. And so when my oldest, Kansas, his same name is Kansas, and he's 38 years old now, my oldest boy. And one day I was in the house, and I was still drinking lots. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day at the time, and foul mouth, and I went into the bedroom. My son, Kansas sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up there, but my son went into the bedroom, closed the door. He's 2 years old, and he's so I knew he was up to something, because he didn't usually do that. So I go in there, and he's on his knees in the bedroom. He's got one of my cigarettes in his mouth, and he's trying to light it.
Oh my!
Yeah, at 2.
Oh my goodness!
And so to me, it was like I looked at that, and I almost laughed, but I didn't want to laugh because I didn't think it was a good idea to start smoking at 2. And so I looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And it's like I heard a voice saying, "He just wants to be like his
Just
daddy."
like his dad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, and I don't like who I was. I hated my life. So then, about a year later, it's his third birthday. We have all the families over, my brothers and sister and nephews and nieces, and my grandparents come over, and they didn't drink, so we didn't have no booze in the house while they were there. Everybody else drank, and so we're having his third birthday party, and he's about ready to blow the candles out, and it's kind of quiet, and then all of a sudden, out of his mouth, the F bomb comes, just like loud and clear, about 5 times in a row, like clear, and like, I felt like crawling under the because my grandparents were there, and they were Christians, and I felt like, what in the world? I said, Kansas, why are you saying that? And then I heard that voice. He says, he was only saying what his daddy always says.
Yeah.
And so then I began to realize if I don't do something to change, these guys have no hope. There's no hope for them. And so he was about 3 then, and I think that is February. So through that year, I was just contemplating what I'm going to do. So then when in December, like I get drunk every day. Like for the last 3 years of my drinking, I drank every day. I drank by myself.
Wow.
I didn't like people. I didn't want to go to the bar. I just drank. I got drunk and passed out and wake up and go to work the next day, get me sick every morning and say, I'm never doing that again, and then do it over. So told Shelly, I said, this is around, I think maybe the end of November, beginning of December of that year in 80, I think it was 86 or 87, something, 87. And I said, I'm going to quit drinking. And she just kind of chuckled because she had never seen me without beer in my hand. Like I always had beer in the truck when I picked her up when we dated and when we're married, always. She had never seen me not drink. And I said, I'm quitting drinking January 1st. And she kind of laughed about it at first. Says, yeah, right. And then she says, okay, but I'm going to write up a contract if you start drinking. And so she wrote up a contract. If I started drinking, I had to buy her a new minivan and a fur coat. And she wrote it all out and I had to sign it. Like I had to actually sign the contract. And it was crazy what God works through, how he works, because it was insane. Because I'd tried quit drinking quite a few times. I never could make it a day. And wrote that out. I signed the paper, dated it, and then December 31st that year, I went to the New Year's party in Norquay and to the dance, and they had dances all the time. And I got wasted, and I woke up in the morning. I said, "That's it, no more." And I never had a drink since.
Is that right?
Not one,
No.
not a desire. It was so crazy. It's not a desire. And I thought, man, this is nuts. And I thought, I could go to the bar. I could sit in the bar with everybody. They'd offer me, you want a drink? I'll buy you. No, I'll have a Coke or whatever, but I ain't drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was actually God working, but I was still an atheist.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, I'm still not, I quit drinking, but I'm not happy yet. I'm still a miserable person. So I thought, booze isn't really the problem. Then there's something else. And so I knew what it was. I didn't have enough money. So that I figured, if I could only make like 80,000 a year, I'd be happy. It's a funny thing how God works. Right, a couple months after I quit drinking, this guy phones me, says, "Hey, I got this job for you. Work up in a mine, construction. I'm a carpenter. Got a good job for you. Make big money here." He says, and just come. He says, "It's easy work too, like easy.
Yeah.
We're cost plus contracts. So they give you a day's work and they want you to last 7 days doing it, So that was hard.
Oh, wow.
That was hard to do that.
Hard to do.
Yeah. Because I was a residential construction carpenter.
Yeah.
And so I built homes and I drank myself into a debt and we were in financial trouble and this job came up. And I remember my brother, I could have declared bankruptcy, but I asked the bankers anyway out of this. And he said, "You find a co-signer, I'll sign and you pay all your bills." And so my brother co-signed for me even before I had a job, which was crazy. And because, if you don't make your payments, he has to pay him. And so this job come up, and all of a sudden I'm making all kinds of money. And I'm first year up there, I think I made $79,500. Still wasn't happy. I didn't think that $500 was going to do it. So, so I said, what is missing? So then I started secretly seeking the Lord because I couldn't tell anybody I was going to do that because, macho stuff
Pride.
like that,
Yeah.
pride. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, um, I, I, I just needed, I needed to find God. So I remember we're in Yorkton Mall, going by Cole's bookstore, and there's this Bible stories for kids, big, thick, big book, Bible stories for kids book that's sitting right there. I said, Shelley, you got to buy that and start reading that to the kids.
Oh.
Yeah, that was my reasoning, but my reasoning was I wanted to read it.
Yeah.
And so when she bought it, went home, and I'd try and they'd go out and she'd go out and play with the kids somewhere, and I'd take that book and try to read it, but nothing made any sense. I was just like, this is crazy. I don't have any idea. So long story short, Shelley ended up getting into the Amway business, and I was working up in northern Saskatchewan by this time in the mines, 2 weeks in, 1 week out, gone for 9 months of the year, really, in reality. And 2/3 of the year you're gone. And then she says, I can't take this anymore. She got into the Amway business thinking we could, build this business and I'd get out of its multi-level marketing. And she ended up going to a conference in Winnipeg. I couldn't get time off. So at that time we had 3 kids. I couldn't get time off to go to this conference. And so she went, and she ended up, I remember phoning her from up north in Cigar Lake. I was at that time. And SaskTel wasn't deregulated yet, so the long distance charges were like $1 a minute in prime time.
In prime time.
Yeah, that's a discount.
Sundays or after whatever.
Yeah, after 6, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't talk long. She just started crying and says, "What in the world?" I said, "Well, how was your weekend?" She says, "Oh, I finally got my life together." And I always thought she had it together. She was always kind of that way. And she ended up telling me later, much later, that she gave her life to the Lord. And I remember going home for the first time, and she's crying on the phone. I said, "Never mind, we'll talk about it when I get home, and then you can tell me what happened." And
Yeah.
so I go home, and the first thing she says to me, I said, "So what happened?" The kids are all around. Then the kids took off, were playing. So what happened? What's going on? And she says, "Yeah, we have to start tithing." That's what she said. That was her response to what happened to you. Till this day, she couldn't even tell you why she said that. And I said, what's tithing? I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And or it's where you give 10% of your income to the church. I said, are you crazy? Like, I'm making a lot of money. I'm not giving that church nothing. Because she went to United Church. And they never made any sense to me before. And so anyway, she says, well, never mind. You go to this conference, and when you go to this, come with me to this conference, or I guess it was called the convention. There was one in Regina in September. So it's coming up 33 years ago, in September 15th. Went to this conference. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so all the businessmen, they always talked a little bit about God, but then they'd say, if you want to know the secret to success, come Sunday morning, there's a non-denominational church service, and there you give there you find where your happiness comes from, because it's not in money. And so I said, okay, that makes sense, because money wasn't doing it for me. For almost 30 some years, or however many years ago it was. And then they had a non-denominational church service. This place is packed at the Center of the Arts in Regina. It was called then. I don't know what it's now. But there was top floor, bottom floor. Both floors were full of people.
Wow.
And I ended up giving my the guy preached a simple gospel message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I ended up going to an altar call and giving my life to Jesus. And I didn't pray the sinner's prayer. I went up and I prayed a prayer. I never prayed in my life. I never read a book in my life. So I'm didn't know any verbiage. I didn't know any verses. or I didn't even know how to pray, but I went up there and I felt the presence of God really strong. I know what it was, but I knew he was there. And I said, God, I wasted 29 years of my life. Whatever I have left, I give to you. Do whatever you want to do with it. And then right there, it was like I felt a cleansing, a purification. It's like I belonged to the family of God. And it was so bizarre. Like that was the last thing I ever thought I'd be doing. Like I'm a pastor now. I'm a high school dropout. I didn't go to Bible college. I didn't do any of the things you're supposed to do to become a pastor. But now I pastor 2 churches, and I don't even know how it all happened. It was so crazy, so fast, and yeah, it's been quite a journey ever since then. But that impacted me so strongly that day, that September 15th, 1991. That the power and presence of God was so strong in that room. I didn't know what that was. It was just like there's this force there, but it's peaceful. And finally, I felt like I had a purpose.
Yeah.
And I said, whatever you want me to do, God. I was serious. I'm still serious to this day. I just didn't know the journey it was going to be, and where it was going to end. And I still don't know where it's going to end completely, but it's been an incredible journey. Since then, I've led like hundreds of people to the Lord.
Oh, at least,
all over different parts of the world, a few different parts of the world, and just had the opportunity to share the gospel every week is such a privilege for me. And I think people that I used to drink with are still waiting for me to come back to the old life. And I ain't going. I can't. Uh, I'm careful to say that. I'm careful to say I'm never going back.
Yeah.
Because I've heard people say that I'm never going back, and right away they're back. But with the Lord's help, I'm never going back to that life.
Yeah.
And that's the only way it's kept me from that is Him. And is he worked in my life 4 years before he worked in my life all the way through. Obviously, he spared me from when I was suicidal. But I think of that 4 years when I quit drinking, where I was seeking something, and even when I was suicidal, he had me in his hands.
So what would you say? We got like three minutes left here,
Okay.
And so the drinking didn't satisfy you, the cursing didn't satisfy you, the money didn't satisfy you. What would you say to people out there that are struggling with the same thing? Because anybody that's doing those three things are like usually they're not very happy.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to be happy.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a purpose, but I couldn't find it in that. I was just like, there was nothing there. And when I gave my life to Christ, He gave me purpose. He says, and I was sad. I wasn't content. I was never wanted to be a preacher like that.
No.
This,
Well, you didn't like public speaking either.
No, not you. I was scared to death. As a matter of fact, when I gave my first testimony in the Baptist church, I never got one word out. I cried the whole time and just walked off the stage because I couldn't talk.
Oh, sorry, I should have laughed.
It is funny.
No, like it just what you are today.
Yeah, it's just like it was awful. So I thought I could serve the Lord, just serving, helping people. I can shovel snow at the church. I can bring water to the pulpit. I can help clean. I can do all kinds of stuff. But I had a purpose. I knew that God had a plan for my life.
You've talked a lot about having one foot in the world and one foot with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No.
It's either all in or all out.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't. Is this? But it's. I found my purpose. God gave me a purpose. Jesus had a purpose from the day I was born. And from the day we were born, there's a conflict that starts arising. The devil doesn't want us to fulfill that purpose. And I found my life in Christ Jesus. He's the one who gives me purpose.
Yeah.
Even like I could have worked a secular job all my life. It wouldn't have bothered me one bit. I still had a purpose because I led people to Christ. But I'm working in secular jobs. I worked in the mining industry for 18 years.
You really?
And led a lot of people to the Lord. I was content with that.
Yeah.
But it was like all of a sudden God says, contentment's not what it's all about. I want you to obey. So He called me into the ministry when I was like in 1997, when the day my mom passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So He said, I called you to preach.
Wow.
And I fought that for quite a few years too. But main thing was just staying connected to the Lord.
Staying connected, yeah.
Stay connected to Him, staying connected with His people.
Yeah.
Is crucial. We can't do this by ourselves.
No.
It's not
it's community.
It's not a one-man thing that you can go out and just, I'm going to serve God, forget about people. The Bible says the two greatest commandments are love God, love people. Right. And if you're not loving people, you're not loving God.
No.
And if you're, if you can't love people, you're not loving God. Either way, right. It's one way or the other. If you're loving God, you say I love God and hate my brother. The Bible says that you're a liar. The truth of God is not in you. And so anyway, it's just like there's no contentment in anything other than Jesus.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could do. Even running a church, if Jesus wasn't involved in it, it would be the most miserable thing you could ever possibly do in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
We've got to stop now, but we're going to have set episode 2 with Pastor Terry Severson recorded as well. So be looking for that as well. And from Sarah and Terry and I, we thank you for listening, and God bless.
God bless you. Amen.